and welcome back to the Safari Shots podcast with me, Villiers Steyn, and my co-host, Lance van der Vyver. How's it, Lance?
Very well, and yourself?
I'm doing very well, man. It's so funny. As usual, I just got back from Monopools, and you're just heading to Monopools. You must be excited about that trip.
Yeah, very excited. I've been checking the weather, though, and it looks like it's going to be a hot one. So less excited about the heat, but very excited to be back.
Why do you think I went a week earlier?
Some people are smarter.
I'm sure you're going to have an absolutely amazing time. But we are not here to talk about monopools. In this week's episode, we're going to be talking about AI, and specifically the role that AI plays in wildlife photography, and discuss a little bit the pros and cons of AI. But I've been wondering about this a little bit, Lon, since we decided that this is what we want to talk about. Why do you think AI and enhancing photographs has become so important for people? Do you think it's because they want to create something that they think they'll never see, or do you think it's because they want to make things more beautiful?
That is a very good question. I've actually never thought about it like that. I've thought about it as AI as a way of making editing and photography or art a lot easier. I've never looked at it as a way of doing something that I couldn't do before. I think that's just the way my brain is wired. But what I'm seeing online, a lot of people are using it to make images that are almost impossible. So I think, AI is in this weird space where we're kind of between it's very useful, but it's almost making its own genre of art because it's not photography as me and you know it.
Yeah, I think the reason I asked that question is before we do a deep delve into what AI looks like now, it's worth rewinding a little bit and just thinking a little bit about human nature and how we've always wanted to look nicer. If you just think about people, we have fake hair, fake boobs, fake eyelashes, fake everything. And then that went over to Snapchat where you have filters, and a lot of those things are about beauty. And that's why I asked, do you think it's because people want to make their photographs more beautiful and they just feel like they can't capture that? Or is it because they want to create something completely different? And that's where it leans a little bit more to the completely fake. You know, you'll often look at these AI images that people just create with a prompt, and it is just out there. I mean, it's something that probably will never happen or is so rare, and that leans more to the desire to showcase something that it's not necessarily beautiful, it's just rare. I suppose for me, I've just been thinking about a little bit in the human psyche and really thinking about why we lean into AI. But you touched on something. AI definitely does make wildlife photography and especially editing a lot easier.
Yeah. So sort of circling around a little bit more, I think people now are almost getting to the point where they're exploiting AI. With where social media is these days, you get rewarded for out there, for something different, for something that's impossible. You get rewarded with money if you've got enough likes and followers and all that kind of stuff. And also, we're a little bit weird as a species as well. We like to be in the limelight. We like it when 5 people say, "Oh, well done, that's the nicest thing I've seen all day." It's part of human nature, but it's now getting to the point where less photography, more the AI videos, because AI videos are just stupid. I've seen a giraffe on a cliff getting bulldozed up with, and people all standing around. It's stuff that is completely out there, but people are believing it. This is the scary thing. AI is now getting so sophisticated that most people believe everything they see, which is also where it's getting scary now.
I think that's the most frustrating thing for me is I don't know what to believe anymore because it's become so realistic that you open a Facebook page and even sometimes very reputable pages that share wildlife photographs, and you got to think to yourself, is that real or not? And that would have been absolutely fine if that's all in its completely own category and pages and when it's differentiated. But where it really frustrates me now, and I'm sure it frustrates a lot of other wildlife photographers, is now people are looking at real photographs and saying, oh, that must be AI. And I can see some
Yes.
photographers like Greg DeToy actually in their comments say no AI or no artificial, editing or whatever it might be. So now we as wildlife photographers have to actually remind people that we haven't used AI. And I think that's what really frustrates me, is that we just don't know when we look at something anymore whether it was real or not.
Yeah, I get super frustrated. So, I mean, I'm not on Facebook much anyway because I don't have time and I don't like Facebook. But I'm finding now that a lot of these big pages that I used to follow, there used to be one, I think the worst one I've ever seen is, I think it's called Leopards, Lions and Jaguars, something like that. Now, people post these beautiful, real photos and they get like one like. Nobody cares. People just scroll past. And then they post these most outrageous, unreal, impossible images, which are created by a prompt, 15 jaguars all hugging their babies and all that kind of stuff. And they are now the images getting all the likes, all the comments. The algorithm kicks in. They kick them to the top of the page. So every time I open my Facebook, I get spammed with AI. And I now unfollow every single page that's a photography page that I see AI images all over. And something about it kills me on the inside.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's funny because I really don't like creating AI images. And then the other day, I posted a video about a leopard going under a fence. And it was trail camera footage, really poor trail camera footage. And I just couldn't get a nice screenshot from that video for the thumbnail of the video. And I realized if I just use this screenshot, nobody's ever going to see this amazing footage. And I created an AI thumbnail. And it was extremely well done. And yeah, I basically stuck my foot in that pond. And actually, in that case, it actually really did an amazing job. And I felt that it was justified. But I mentioned it. So I made it very clear that I actually said, sorry, people, I use AI, please don't judge me. But there certainly is space for that. But where I find AI in wildlife photography most useful at the moment is obviously on the editing side of things. And if you think about noise reduction, sharpening, creating masks, selecting your subject in your sky, think about where we were 2 years ago versus where we are now, and how you don't necessarily even have to leave Lightroom to something like Topaz or whatever to do amazing post-processing with the help of AI. I mean, am I right in saying you're not against that?
So this is where it's different. I really don't like creating images with AI. I have no problem with it if you're an artist and that's your kind of thing. But as a photographer, I don't like the idea of making photos. Well, firstly, they're not photos. It's digital art. I'm kind of against that. There's some stuff that I've seen that's actually really nice, but they say digital art, whatever, and it's not supposed to look real, and it's especially in the wildlife category. They don't try and make things look like they took a photo, which is where I get caught up. But the AI in editing, I absolutely love. Me and we've taught many classes where we show people how you take a brush and you spend 15 minutes highlighting the animal so that you can, separate it from the background or brighten or darken it. And then you go over the line. Now you have to use the opposite brush. And it used to take 15, 20 minutes, an hour if you were bad at it, 5 seconds if you didn't care. Now it's a button. So stuff like that is incredible. The anti-noise in Lightroom these days, sorry, Topaz and all that jazz.
Yeah.
The new anti-noise in Lightroom is incredible. Yeah. To the point where now it almost doesn't matter what your ISO is. Almost.
Yeah, I agree.
And it almost doesn't matter what camera you have. Almost. So it's always better to get it right in camera and get lower stuff. But now we can take images where we couldn't take them anymore. Yeah. I shoot comfortably at 12,800 ISO. I have zero issues with it because I know, especially on Instagram this big and Facebook this big, no one's going to know. I've got an image on my wall that's 3.5 meters wide and it was taken at 12,800 ISO. and it's clean because the new AI anti-noise is fantastic. So there are parts where AI is fantastic for us photographers.
Yeah, and I think the thing is, if there are still people out there that are grappling with whether or not it's okay to use those things or not, think of it more as just an advancement in technology. It's basically AI is just, I just see it as a different algorithm. It's just a way to do noise reduction, sharpening, subject selection, and all that stuff better and quicker. So I think we sometimes immediately get a fright when we hear AI, artificial intelligence, when actually I see it more as an advancement in technology. And what it's allowed us to do is to get great shots, like you say, with different gear, or gear you may not have done before. So whether it's your camera that's a bit mid-range or entry level and doesn't have great ISO capabilities, or whether it's your lens, like I use 100 to 500 with a 7.1 minimum f-stop value when I'm zoomed in completely. That doesn't let in a huge amount of light, so that ISO is always going to spike. But again, like you say now, if I'm at 12,800, which I often do these days, it really isn't an issue anymore. So what the AI is doing, it's giving us a better chance to get great photographs, but I really don't see it as cheating. It does, however, cause another big problem that's a bit of a pet hate of mine, and that is, now that subject selection has become so good, I find that people, I don't want to say misuse, because they probably just don't know what they're doing. It's not like they're doing it on purpose, but they incorrectly use those masks that AI allows us to get. So whether that's a background select, or especially I find a subject select, so they'll create a mask over that beautiful lion sitting there, and then just absolutely edit it, way too far, and then you have a little ghost sitting there in the frame. So I think that's the problem, is it's just taking you from what should be a good thing, and it actually makes it a worse thing.
Yeah, that was actually going to be one of my questions to you, was now that it's getting so easy, are you finding that editing is, well, let's say images you're seeing posted on a consistent basis, getting better or worse?
I think they're getting worse, and I'll tell you why. Because in the past, when you couldn't do a subject select, you, like you said correctly, you'd have to go and brush in that animal. You have to go and select it carefully, and if you didn't care, it was going to be a terrible job, and then you probably weren't going to post it. And if you really were going to take the time, there was no ways that you were ever going to be able to select the subject perfectly. So invariably it ended up being perhaps a little bit of a radial filter. That's actually what I used to use a lot, just use a radial filter, think carefully, am I just doing the face or the body of the animal, and so forth. And very often something like a radial filter around a subject works so much better because it does include a little bit of the background. So that change is very subtle from background to subject itself, where kind of like shining a spotlight on it. Whereas when you do a subject select, you have got to be so careful. So even me at the moment, I very, very seldom do a major edit on a subject select. I might do it on the background specifically, or I'll just do it super duper subtly. But yeah, I actually think the answer is it's gotten worse. The photos that I typically see now, I can clearly see people having used those specific selections and just not know how to use them at all.
Yeah, maybe we should do a top 5 quick tips. So there's a magazine in Hoedspruit. It's from a game reserve in Hoedspruit. I'm not sure if I should mention it. They're probably not listening, but I probably shouldn't mention the name. Let me just say, the latest issue I saw, beautiful photo of a wild dog drinking at I'm sure it must be Makumu hide or something. Eye level at the hide, beautiful. Wild dog, nice and sharp, eye contact, beautiful background. But they had darkened the background. They forgot the one patch between the two legs. So there's one little triangle glowing in the background. The problem is, because I've played with so many images and I've done a lot of stuff, I pick up stuff like that very quickly. And it's now getting to the point where this is one of the problems I have with AI and photography. I'm finding myself now looking less at the images like, oh, wow, this is a nice image, to, it's AI because I can see this and this and this. It's just something annoying with my brain.
Or trying to spot the mistake. Where did they make the mistake?
Yeah, so a lot of the things like animals with fur, AI is not good at separating fur. So the same wild dog, sadly, halfway through the ears, you could see where the selection hadn't worked and they hadn't quite fixed the bits. And then the worst thing was, not the worst thing, but I don't know if it was a quick edit and send it, but the editor also didn't see it. Awesome front page of the magazine. Ooh, whoops. And I'm seeing a lot more stuff like that. I saw a billboard the other day with a similar thing, where it was a property one, but the outline of the house, they'd clearly selected the house in Lightroom quickly, but it had missed half a wall. So stuff like that is... So be careful when you're editing.
That's the whole tip, is be very careful when you use Lightroom and all these amazing selections. And Lightroom's probably seldom going to call it AI. They do it with the denoise, but a lot of the other stuff, they're not calling it the AI subject mask, but it's artificial intelligence that allows them to do it so well. But I suppose to jump back to the positive side and to move a little bit away from the editing, think about how often we use things like ChatGPT these days in our everyday lives, and I use it a lot for technical photographic stuff. So if I get stuck on something on the camera or with clients' cameras and things like that, and we cannot figure something out, ChatGPT is a very, very good way to sort that out. I mean, even you and I, just before this podcast, Lance and I were struggling a little bit to get our audio right, and it was a simple little button we needed to press in the program that we use, and it was only with the help of ChatGPT that we figured that out. So in that sense, for me, it's been a game changer, because it just makes me, artificial intelligence has allowed me to work far more efficiently when it comes to the technical side of photography and videography and editing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you know me, I would say, was it Bill Gates or Steve Jobs? One of them, I would be their favorite employee, because one of their favorite quotes was, you don't pick the brightest guy, you pick the guy who knows all the shortcuts, because he'll get the job done. And I hate to admit it, but I'm probably that guy. When it comes to photography, especially editing wise, I can sit and shoot all day long, but editing wise, I want to get things out. Yeah. And so AI has very much helped me in my process. I mean, I'll cull 1,000 images down to 10 in, 2 minutes. And I have no qualms with that. And AI is also helping that, because the algorithms are making all the programs faster, which is fantastic. So yeah, there's definitely pros.
So here's a question. I just thought of it, and I want to quickly jump back to the editing side of things so we don't forget it. Because I know there's people that are going to wonder, what do you think about the AI removal tool? So in other words, in the past, we would have used a spot removal to maybe remove a very distracting piece of elephant dung or a twig or something like that. Whereas now, when you use the AI removal, suddenly it becomes a bit easier to remove a stick in front of a leopard. Something that we may not have been able to do before with your healing tool, your cloning tool, or something like that. So what do you think about that?
So yeah, again, brilliant, especially because so our last Elephant Plains workshop, we actually did this, and we looked at the old way of doing it, and then we just chose it. And I told the guys, listen, this never works. Even now with AI, it still never works. And there was a stick right in front of the leopard's eye, in front of its whiskers, in front of its chin, that beautiful fluff on the chin, which is always so sharp and you cannot remove things, and then down through the spots and into the grass. I drew one line and it went gone, and it was perfect. So here's the thing, though: if that's a photo for you because you've come on a photo workshop and you want the best photo for you for your wall, I am 1,000% for it. The tricky thing is when this starts getting now into competitions and things like that. They say they don't allow all that kind of stuff, but it's my worry now is it's going to get to the point where it's going to be very hard to tell. Yeah. They have software that picks up if things are AI at the moment, but I mean, AI itself is almost self-healing now. So it's going to get to the point one day, and probably not too far away because it jumps so quickly already, that one day we're just not going to know. And then all those dirty buggers who keep winning Wildlife Photographer of the Year with their fake animals and all that kind of stuff. Now it's going to be AI, which is going to be the number one problem.
Yeah, exactly. Well, listen, from my side, I think, as with all things that have an evil and a good side, including the internet, it's really just about using it responsibly. But I encourage people to embrace AI. And if you are a sort of a purist wildlife photographer, don't hesitate to use it in your editing process. You know, you and I are never going to change the essence of a photograph. We're really just trying to make our workflow better and our editing a little bit better. But I think it's nothing that we didn't do in the past. We're just doing it a lot easier. I'm unfortunately going to have to cut this a little bit short because I am going out to meet one of my patrons, Simon Wakenshaw. It's always exciting to meet the people that support the Safari Expert YouTube channel. But talking about patrons, Lance, how are things going on the Panthera Photo Safari's conservation fund front of things?
Very well, yeah. So if you want to get involved, we are here. So we've sponsored collars in the last couple of weeks. We've sponsored anti-snaring. The snares are still horrific around where we live, so we're sponsoring that. There's been a few small other little emergencies which we're going to post recently, we'll post soon. But yeah, so if you're wanting to get involved, it does a lot of good for especially for our area. It's basically just a little fun so when there's an emergency and the vets need to go out and fix something, we can send them straight away. So please join. It does a world of good.
Guys, for you that don't know Patreon, it's basically an online platform that allows people like you to support different projects and content creators all over the world. And believe me when I say these rescues and collarings and things that Panthera Photo Safaris do are extremely expensive because there's usually vets involved. That's often a helicopter, all that fuel involved, the veterinary costs, the pilot costs. So for them to be able to build up that fund every month with the patrons' money allows them then when there is an emergency, they have the funds available, and it makes a real difference. Just very quickly before we end, actually talking about conservation, another way that AI is being used in conservation is, for instance, to help identify specific individuals with spot pattern analysis. I was chatting to someone about that the other day, where in the past, if we were to try and identify which leopard has walked past a trail camera, you would literally have to sit there and compare the photographs one by one. Whereas now with AI, it's become so easy to create a kind of a 3D view of a specific animal if you just input enough photographs from different angles. And if it then gets photographed again, whoop, AI just picks it up. So again, another example of where AI can be used for good, and why I think one should be careful to not, take out the big cross when you hear, AI.
Before we run away, did you see? I can't remember who it was. I should probably remember. If I remember, I'll put it here, and if I can find it. No, I can't remember. But it's basically a very well-known photographer. He posted a photo of a polar bear with the northern lights in the background. And then someone, not even in a program like Lightroom or Photoshop, I think it was Adobe Firefly or something, just with prompts, basically typed in polar bear, blah, 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 got a basic image, and then you can edit it. Now add northern lights to the sky. And if I said the image was about 80% exactly his image, it was very close. The northern lights, the little zigzag almost matched. The polar bear was in basically the same pose. That is the one place where I really don't like AI. And I don't know if you guys know, every time we use AI in Lightroom, where you sign the little agreement when you signed up for Adobe, they are actually using your images to improve their AI. So the reason now that leopard with the grass works is because enough of us have tried to get rid of grass from in front of leopards, that the leopards' fur and their eyes is all working. So it is a little scary. Yeah, you're basically donating to AI science at this point, unless you want to stop using Adobe, you screwed. But yeah, so that's his example of an image was a very scary thing. That's one thing I am a little bit worried with AI is where it's going to end and the ethics that you have no idea about.
Just wait until episode 5 of season 3 of the Safari Socks podcast next year when we talk about how, it's taken over.
Well, we won't be recording. It'll just do it for us.
Guys, thank you so much for watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify. Take the time to like and subscribe the Panthera Photo Safaris YouTube channel, and go and check out the Panthera Photo Safaris website if you want to see what amazing trips Lance and maybe me too are leading next year. And Lance, I will see you in episode 5, whenever that might be. Maybe when you're back from Mana Pools.
Sounds great. Awesome.
Lekker man, enjoy.
Cheers, have a good one.